Time Magazine, Person of the Year. First decade, 1927 to 1937. 1927, Charles Lindbergh. Lindbergh completed the first solo transatlantic flight in May 1927 by piloting his monoplane Spirit of St. Louis from Garden City, New York to Paris, France. 1928, Walter Chrysler. In 1928, Chrysler oversaw a merger of his company, Chrysler, with Dodge before beginning work on the Chrysler Building. 1929, Owen D. Young. Young chaired a committee which authored 1929's Young Plan, a program for settlement of German reparations after World War I. 1930, Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi was the leader of India's independence movement. In 1930, he led the Salt Satyagraha, a 240-mile march to protest the imposition of taxes on salt by the British Raj. 1931, Pierre Laval. Laval was first appointed Prime Minister of France in 1931. He was popular in the American press at the time for opposing the Hoover Moratorium, a temporary freeze on World War I debt payments that was disliked in both France and the U.S. 1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Roosevelt won the 1932 U.S. presidential election by a landslide, defeating the incumbent, Herbert Hoover. 1933, Hugh S. Johnson. In 1933, Johnson was appointed director of the National Recovery Administration. U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt gave him the task of bringing industry, labor, and government together to create codes of fair practices and set prices. 1934, Franklin D. Roosevelt, second time. Roosevelt was President of the United States from 1933 to 1945. In 1934, Roosevelt's New Deal reforms were beginning to bring results. 1935, Haile Selassie. Selassie was Emperor of Ethiopia in 1935 when Italian forces invaded Ethiopia, starting the Second Italo-Abyssinian War. 1936, Wallis Simpson. In 1936, Simpson's relationship with King Edward VIII of the United Kingdom led the king to abdicate the throne to marry her. 1937, Chiang Kai-shek. Chiang was premier of the Republic of China at the outbreak of the Second Sino-Japanese War in 1937. Also 1937, Soong Mei-ling. Soong was wife of Chiang Kai-shek from 1927 until his death in 1975 and was active in rallying support for the Republic of China in the U.S. Addressed as Madam Chiang Kai-shek by the magazine, she was recognized together with her husband as Man and Wife of the Year. Watch out for part 2. So please subscribe.